This is the theme of Setback, an interview with the Hitman, Viktor's escape, select frames. So now we see London, England, and we get the back of Viktor's head. We don't know what he's thinking about, but we do understand that he's in another country. We get his reflection through the window, and we don't know what he's thinking about. The narrative when he's in London, England, he doesn't go into a reflection period. He just understands where he is, and he's got to now find a whole new mob boss. He's got to find a way to be of use again. And so he doesn't get into this whole sort of contemplative journal writing. Let's think about this betrayal that just happened before we go on ahead and make a choice to do something else. And so the setback, a lot of times a setback should be useful for you thinking about areas of weakness before going on to greater battles. And that's the definition of setback that I use from a minister, Bishop T.D. Jakes' series, Step It Up, that came out sometime in 2006. And so he's talking about the purpose of a setback is not for you to be upset and pout and whine. The purpose of a setback is for you to reflect on areas of weakness and fix them before going on to greater battles. How is it that Sergei was able to make a decision to kill Viktor, despite what trafficking tells him to do? That there was nothing in him that was more resistant to it or more inclined in him to go and try to hide him or something like that. So on some level, he felt like Viktor was a person he could kill. Because if he had any fear of Viktor, if he truly had any fear of Viktor, he wouldn't have attempted it. Or if he had fear of him, he would have been in the apartment before Viktor came. So Sergei really trained and framed Viktor as someone who could be killed. It never occurred to him that he would not be killed, right? So that is also something to think about, because Viktor did not frame Sergei as a person who could be killed, because if that was the case, he would have killed Sergei a long time ago. To assume a position, to be as a higher ranking mob enforcer, he would have killed him a long time ago. So that lets you know that Viktor, it never crossed his mind that Sergei could be a person that he killed, that all of the other people that he killed, those are assignments. Sergei was never an assignment, but as much as the mob gave Viktor assignments to kill people, Viktor was forced to give himself an assignment to kill Sergei, his mentor. So we see Viktor walking up some stairs. And to me, this is symbolic of not only moving forward, but the attempt to move up, right? That the stairs represent ascension, and that he's now going to figure out who the current boss is of the city. Go into this hotel room and look for the bugs in the room, because Sergei was the one who always told him that hotels like this are the types of places that bug rooms, especially the rooms of politicians or businessmen or anything like that, so they can use something against them and get their way. And so this walking up the stairs, it represents some form of ascension, moving from the lower levels of dealing with trafficking Sergei Franco to now moving up higher levels. He's even changed his dress. He's even changed his garb. He's not wearing the jeans and the shoes and the t-shirt and the leather jacket. He's wearing a suit. He knows that in each area, in each context, you have to change your dress. You have to move yourself to a higher level of thinking. And so this going up the stairs represents on some level his ascending, his ascension. Later, he's not going to keep the mob enforcer job because he says it's too much risk. And we'll get into it, but we're looking at him from the back again. Remember the back where he was running through the tunnel, and we thought there was a lot of kind of like a monkey on his back, and then we remember him as a child from the back when he's making the decision to become a mob enforcer and be of use to Sergey. So now we're looking at him who's supposed to be a dead man. He faked his death in Romania. He's supposed to be a dead man. This dead man is wearing a suit. He's wanting to enter a whole new phase of his mob enforcement, and he is not only moving forward but moving up. So he's in someone's room. He's checking the bugs in the room, seeing where they are. It's a nice room, of course, and he finds a bug behind the bed, and it makes sense, especially if one of the mob people decided to give over a child to him to have sex with. They could frame him later for anything that they wanted in terms of benefits, advantages. This would definitely work well for a politician, like a bug in his hotel room, so that if he's caught with someone, the mob could use that against him and get him to give them economic kickbacks, right, for anything that they are wanting to do, or just look the other way. So the guy comes in who is part of the surveillance team. Viktor decides to take him down. And then he comes across the person who was surveilling, and he takes his computer and he's listening to tapes in the same way that Sergey trained him to listen to tapes, find out where he can get in, what sort of where the gaps are, right? And he listens to this tape and realizes that there's somebody who is a snitch who is stashed in a safe house. And he feels like that may be his way in to the mob boss. So Viktor is listening, getting as much information as he can. The goal is to look for something that he can be of use, because that's how he starts his career. He doesn't have any aspirations to be a mob boss himself. This is his opportunity to be a mob boss. But it looks like he might need some money, because when the mob boss he meets asks him to take on an assignment, Viktor discusses price. So that lets you know he has price in mind. He has money in mind. And I guess the strategy would be to not only be of use, but also make money so you can set yourself up just in case you have to move again. So this guy here is connected to what Viktor is going to find out later about the person Rafa. I never really quite got a good understanding of who this person is, but this person is central to Viktor finding out who the snitch is, where he is housed, where he is stashed. His name is Rafa. So this guy is not Rafa, but he is connected to information that Viktor is going to need to find where Rafa is. So Viktor sort of eyeballs him. The guy is going into the restroom. Viktor gets up. He goes through a door, and this door is his way, metaphorically, of trying to get into a new system through this guy, via this guy, but it is his way of trying to get in. So remember the door that he refused to go through to help his father and mother? The door that he crosses to become a mob enforcer. the door into his apartment, the door leaving his apartment to fake his death, right? He's in a whole new country, and this door he's entering is symbolic of him now wanting to enter a new mob hierarchy, a new mob organization. So he catches the guy by the neck, of course, to get information from him. Victor is very focused in his efforts, so he's holding a gun, and this is sort of like maybe the third time that we see him holding a gun, from the time he was a child, the time that Franco messed up the drug deal, and to now. I could be wrong, but he's not like Sergey in terms of not having a gun at all. But when he takes out a gun, it's for a purpose. It's not for to play with. It's not for to threaten. It's for him to take action. Now, he doesn't shoot this person here, but he does make it possible for him to be knocked out. And so Victor is watching his surroundings, of course. And then, of course, he takes down the guy. He gets the information that he needs, and then he takes down the guy. He doesn't shoot him. And here is where he's surveilling. Again, we get the back of him so we can see the image of the pizza guy. And that's sort of like his MO. He becomes a pizza guy, right, to get in. But this is the back. We're looking at two guys. One is a pizza guy in a townhouse, and he's going to have guards that he's going to see later. So that's I think that is actually Rafa. Could be Rafa. And so Victor is now surveilling the area, trying to figure out who is where. You know, I'm surprised there aren't any security guards or anything like that, because it's just easy for him to get into something. Whereas, I mean, this guy is a snitch on the mob, so why isn't he really heavily guarded? And we get Victor looking at the location to see a way to get in. And then we have Victor laying out the tools of the trade, you know, the gun and everything that is connected to it. He's changed his dress, not only from a suit to the jogging suit, but back to his jeans and his leather jacket. And so he comes in, he shoots the guards. These are the other guards that he shoots. He takes Rafa by the neck, and Rafa is saying to this guard holding the gun, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." But then Victor ends up shooting the guy. And then Victor places him on his knees. And remember that he's a snitch. So what Victor is about to do is almost a way of shutting him up. So he gives him cotton or some kind of handkerchief or something like that to put in his mouth. And you know that's symbolic of him shutting up. You won't have the opportunity to snitch, because I'm going to turn you over to a boss so I can get into a new system. So you're going to have to shut your mouth. And then there's a camera that Victor sees. And he looks up at that camera. And it should be something that is alarming. But this is not the camera really that actually reveals the fact that Victor is alive. It is in the restaurant when the guys take Bethesda into the kitchen and harm her, that Victor doesn't realize that they are on camera. And that's the camera that Bethesda uses to frame Victor and reveal the fact that he's still alive. So Victor drives this guy, this Rafa guy, to this to the warehouse of a boss that he now wants to put himself to use for. And of course, they have to pat him down, right? And then Victor walks him through the warehouse, tied, gagged, of course, which means that he can no longer snitch. It's interesting that he doesn't blindfold him. What if he got away? He would know the location, but bound and tied is enough. And this is the second lieutenant of the new boss that Victor is going to now want to work for. He's kind of suspicious, but we see Victor with the guy on his knees, Rafa on his knees. And the boss here is asking Victor, who are you? And Victor says, that's not important. What is important is what I can do for you. Things your men can't. And that's sort of offensive because none of the men were able to find Rafa in order to bring him to this boss. But that's interesting that they couldn't find him, or did they refuse to find him? Because Victor is saying things your man can't, meaning they're not able to, but it is the second lieutenant here in this black suit with the white collared shirt looking at Victor that is going to set up the boss. So you almost have to wonder then, is the second lieutenant behind Rafa? Rafa doesn't talk or say anything to the second lieutenant, and maybe Victor doesn't give him a chance, but it's something that a mob network of people, foot soldiers, leaders, could not find this one snitch. And I have to reason that they did not want to find him, or the second lieutenant set it up where they could not find him or refused to find him. So this boss here is interested in taking Victor on. I mean, it is impressive that he was able to find the snitch, but it is the lieutenant, the second lieutenant, who accuses Victor of being a cop. And he's the one who suggests, why don't we keep him and kill you, right? Keep Rafa and kill Victor. Which is odd, though, because wouldn't you want to kill the snitch? Sure, if you wanted to kill Victor, go on ahead and kill Victor. But why is it that you're going to keep the snitch and kill Victor, right? When you really don't know anything about him. At least give it some time to check him out, right? To run his record through the network. But it's interesting that the second lieutenant guy would actually say, let's keep the snitch and kill Victor. So the guy is, of course, afraid for his life. We don't know what kind of person he is, so we don't get a really narrative background on him other than the fact that he's a snitch and that he was stashed in a safe house. But we don't know what he's snitching about. But we do understand that this boss man, this mob boss, has a way of killing people who are reporting on him. So later, when Victor decides that he's not going to continue with the business, and the boss man gives him his last assignment to kill a journalist, a reporter, it seems like he wants people killed who won't play ball, because his first assignment is going to be for Victor to actually kill a cop who can't be bought, right? And it seems like the boss is the kind of person, this mob boss is the kind of person, he wants to kill those types of people. He cannot convince, he cannot persuade anyone who sort of speaks or writes anything against him. So then we have to think to ourselves, Rafa might have been a previous mob enforcer who was approached by a cop, by maybe the same cop that Victor is going to kill through liquid nicotine, and that they are connected, that maybe it was the police who stashed him there, of course. And so, but he usually tries to kill people or has people killed who can't be bought, who cannot be changed, who cannot be converted, who cannot be persuaded, and people who basically write or speak things against him. So here we have the second lieutenant accusing Victor of being a cop, of course, pointing a gun at him. Victor is cool. One thing about it, Victor is cool. He stays cool. He doesn't try to take the gun out of the man's hand. He doesn't try to fight the man. He doesn't he doesn't even turn his face to argue with him. They both are looking at the mob boss, but it's just interesting that Victor is very cool in the way that he handles himself. So the mob boss is kind of intrigued, wanting to know much more about him, but Victor is going to give him a phone and basically say, I'll call you, give you some time to think about my offer. But he's saying to the boss here that he says he can basically be of use. So he is of use. He did call Victor, and they are now sitting in a car discussing his assignment. And this is where Victor is asking about a price, or he gives information to this mob boss about a price, and the mob boss is actually surprised. He kind of chuckles a little bit, but this is the trade. Victor is trading his services as a mob enforcer for pay. And interestingly enough, he's not even trading his services for loyalty, right? Remember, he just got out of a situation where he had to fake his death. He was loyal to a person who was his master or his mentor, and that person turned on him. So now he never talked about price before. You knew that he wasn't concerned about price because he kept that very same bill he got from Sergey from a child. So it was never about price. It was maybe about family, having a father figure, having someone that he can trust, feeling protected, covered, or whatever. Having a purpose, even though it's assassin, being a hitman, it still feels like purpose. That's why you hear Caesar talks about Marku, their other family, their other childhood friend, calling him mother fucked, meaning that either I'm going to be a motherfucker or I'm going to be mother fucked. And he's implying that because Marku did not choose to become a mob enforcer, he never grew. He never got out of the slums. In common parlance, he never got out of the hood. He never made much more of himself than what he looks like, and we're going to see what he looks like. And so even if mob enforcing is crime and it's assassination and it's hitman attitudes, it's something that is of purpose. It gives these childhood friends purpose. So this is where he is discussing price. Again, we never hear of him discussing price in any other capacity, but now he's discussing price. So that means he's over the loyalty bit. He's over the betrayal bit. He's going to be of service to someone, but he's not going to go down the same way he did before. He'll never let himself be tricked again. And so now Victor is looking at the information. This is the boss giving Victor a task, an assignment, and it is a cop, and the cop is the type of person who cannot be bought. And so he basically wants Victor to sort of complete the task. So we have a picture of the guy who is the cop who can't be bought, and it is up to Victor to design a way to assassinate him or to kill him. And so now we look at liquid smoke. This is how he's going to kill him. He's creating the liquid smoke. He's going to place it in his coffee, which is then going to induce a heart failure. And so here's the guy who is sitting at a cafe wanting to be served, right? He hasn't quite sat down yet, but there's the intent to sit down. That means that he plans on staying, right? It's not like he came into the cafe He got a drink and walked out. But of course, this must be a popular cafe for him in order for Victor to be there to administer the liquid, smoke a liquid nicotine. So then we have a cut to Victor preparing it, right? And he comes in as a regular type of customer in the appropriate garb. So it's almost like he's looking like the guy who he's now about to kill. He has on this kind of like this corduroy jacket uh, with a collared shirt and then some jeans of sort, and he's wearing some glasses. So he's now acting out a role, and I feel like if he needs, remember what Sergey says, you have to blend into your environment. So in every environment, he changes his garb. And this is the way the people look around this particular environment, this cafe environment. So he purposely drops it on him so he can then turn around and go get him another, which allows for him to put liquid smoke into the coffee. And so then we see him still sort of like this going back and forth of him meeting the person and then preparing the poison at his apartment or at his warehouse. And then he's able to take part of it and place it into another container. And we see him doing that here because then it has to be something that's small enough that he could quickly do it without the bartender or the barista noticing what he's doing. And then we are cut back to where he has the coffee and he's pouring it into the man's coffee to give him a second cup. And again, look at his clothes. He doesn't even look like a hitman. He takes off his glasses, right? Which are, of course, fake. But he's wearing a collared shirt. He's looking like the man he's about to kill. He's looking like the man. You know, interestingly enough, he never looked like Sergey. See, that tells you right then and there that he never planned on killing Sergey. He never looked like Sergey. Sergey wore a suit. Not a really nice, fancy suit, but a suit nonetheless. And he never looked like him. But he's looking like the guy he's about to kill. So he comes and gives him the coffee. Then he quickly leaves. The guy drinks the coffee, feels it tastes a little funny. And then he basically keels over. Victor reports back to this mob boss. He's wearing a suit again, without a tie. And remember that this is I think this is the same suit or the same kind of look that we see when he's first coming off the plane. We have to assume that when he's coming off the plane is to meet with the interviewer. So remember, we haven't seen the interviewer in a long time, but this is basically Victor laying out how he became a mob enforcer and how he continued it with another mob boss. But he is reporting back to the mob boss here. And so he's pulling at him like he would a son, very comfortable with Victor. Victor has proven himself here. There are two girls on the couch and they're going to go and celebrate. So he looks at him again like a father to a son. We don't see the same dynamic between him and the other guy who accused him, the second lieutenant who accused Victor of being a cop. But we know Victor is not a cop. And we know this guy this mob boss believes that Victor is really not a cop. It's going to be his loyalty to Victor, or his acceptance of Victor is about to be tested, however. So he's upset, of course. This second lieutenant here is upset at the fact that who is this person coming into their environment to make changes, to be a major influence, because after all, he's the one who's supposed to be the major influence. But you have to think to yourself, why, if he's a second lieutenant, why wasn't he able to find Rafa himself? Why wasn't he able to dispatch his footmen to find him? One thing about Sergei, he could find somebody. The Victor's father managed to run away from Sergei, but Sergei managed to find him and assassinate him. So Sergei was very good about, um, the logistics of the trade. But this person here, to me, he just wears a suit and he's part of a mob, but he's not really effective, because it shouldn't have taken Victor, an outsider, to come in and actually sort of have an impact the way he has. So then they go and celebrate the mob boss Victor and the two women. And remember, these are likely women who started out as children who were put to work. So it is very significant, their role. They just so happen to be on a couch waiting. I don't think so. These are usually the types of women that they have put to work. It's interesting that Victor notices that the elevator is not working, but it doesn't prompt him to think about it long enough. He just looks at it. The elevator is not working. Let's go upstairs. Nothing in him that sort of wonders about it, thinks about it, checks it out, or even push a button, right, to check and see if it actually works. So this is where I feel like he's letting down his guard. This is a setback for him, because here it is. He's trying to push himself forward to become, to be of use to a new mob enforcer, but he's not quick on his feet here to think about whether or not the setup, whether or not they are walking into a setup that he's supposed to be protecting this boss of his, right? And basically he's not protecting him. So they go up the stairs. The boss is, interestingly enough, Victor is going ahead of the boss, which is odd, right? They're not partners. He's supposed to be the mob enforcer, meaning that he's supposed to be protecting the new boss, but he's not. So that, again, that's part of his setback process, because he's not operating in the traditional way that he has normally been operating since a child. So there's laughter, there's happiness. Victor, I guess, feels a little relaxed, and then he's about to walk into the setup. So he fights the guy, takes the gun out of his hand, takes him down. And then the boss tells one of the girls to get the gun, right? Victor is actually noticeably shocked by this, which he shouldn't be. His defenses are so low that he doesn't recognize a setup before it becomes a setup. And the boss is shocked. And so he pulls a gun out on Victor, which sets him back, because remember, he's supposed to be the person who is the one who just killed somebody on his behalf, and now he's pulling a gun out on Victor. And of course the mob boss is going to be more skeptical now, because maybe he's thinking that Victor set him up. So of course he has to play this role to get back to his place of comfort and his foot soldiers and his footmen. So then they make it back to the warehouse, and then the second lieutenant comes in, and I had wondered whether he was behind the setup, and we find out that he actually is. But he's very shocked, and the shock that he has on his face is kind of minimal, but it is shock. It's like, why is he here? He should be dead. And he's sitting there holding his side because he has been shot, and he's actually surprised. And it is this second lieutenant, his name is Kovacs. And he's laughing. And remember that that laugh from Franco is the same kind of mentally disturbed type laugh. And I don't know if he's the son of this mob boss. I couldn't get a good read on it, but I do realize that he's the second lieutenant and his name is Kovacs. So he's laughing. He's suggesting that Viktor is actually the culprit who set up the boss. But it's going to be found out that the boss is going to call a telephone number, and that phone that rings is actually Kovacs, his second lieutenant. And so there's this sort of ruse that Kovacs does. See, I knew it was you. I knew we couldn't trust him, right? He does this ruse, right? This whole sort of play by play, scene by scene, actor by actor type of thing to kind of throw off any suspicion of him. But it's undeniable that he has a contribution here. Of course, he gets into a laugh, accusing Viktor, saying, the boss is saying somebody knew we were coming, and then the boss is going to call the phone. He does a pointing, and I always remember when a liar tends to do a lot of pointing. So the more he's pointing towards Viktor, the more he's really telling off on himself, because he doesn't know Viktor enough to point at him and call him a liar. So then the boss pulls out the phone that he retrieved from the site. So whoever was hired to kill this boss, this is actually his phone. So he calls the phone, and Kovacs' phone rings. Before that, we have him holding a gun, holding Viktor at gunpoint, as if to make some sort of case that I got him, I got the person. The irony is, why didn't he hold Rafa at gunpoint? When Rafa came in, when Viktor brought Rafa in, why didn't Kovacs here pull out a gun to ensure that Rafa stayed down on the ground? He never pulls out a gun. He sort of looks at Viktor and he looks at the boss and he's accusatory, but he never pulls out a gun. But he's pulling out a gun now. Also, this is also symbolic of the idea that he never dispatches any of his own foot soldiers, because he's second lieutenant, so that means he got some people under him. He never dispatches any of his own foot soldiers to find Rafa. So I think Rafa is actually connected to Kovacs. We don't get a full development in terms of plot development, but we just have to assume. So he's holding a gun. Viktor is cool. He doesn't do much more than just wait, because remember, this second lieutenant, Kovacs, is not the one in charge. So as much as he wants to hold a gun to Viktor's face, to his person, he can't shoot. He's not permitted to shoot. So this is basically theater. It's really no different than theater, because he has no power other than what the main boss says he has, and the main boss is already now going to be suspicious of him because he's so quick to pull out the gun to try to shoot Viktor. So he calls the phone because he is suspicious, right? It's interesting that he will call the phone. There's a guy who is with the major rifle sort of guarding the main boss. That's why I say Kovacs has no real power other than what the main boss gives him. And then the phone rings, and it's the number of Kovacs, or the second lieutenant. And then, of course, he falls to the ground, and The main boss does his spiel, in terms of giving him a talking to. And then we have Viktor holding a gun to Kovacs. It's interesting the conversations we have with people right before they are about to die, or they are about to be killed, or we are about to kill them. He already set up his boss. So why even have the talking to? We know that you're going to kill the person, so why even have the conversation? It's not like he's going to remember it after his death. It would have been better to keep him alive and possibly torture him and get more out of him. How many times has he sold him out to somebody, than to just immediately kill him? But these conversations that we have right before a decision we are about to make really takes a lot of energy. It's almost unnecessary. This is a loose cannon. There's no reasoning with him in the same way there was no reasoning with Franco. And so talking to him and having a conversation with him is just not going to do any good. And so we see that face, that's Franco face. That's that same kind of mental defect that Franco had when he had just shot that drug dealer, that mob son. And so again, it doesn't matter whether Viktor holds a gun to him and shoots him or not. In his mind, he's just, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I would do it again, essentially. And so Viktor does kill him. And the discussion that he's having with this mob boss here is basically, how did you know? And then Viktor says, like, the closer they are, meaning that you kind of have to keep tabs on them. And then the man is saying, but you saw. And then Viktor is saying, but I'm on the outside. It's easier to look in. And then the guy is saying, the mob boss is saying, well, now you're on the inside. But Viktor is saying, I can't take the risk, so I have to go, right? So it's that sort of going back and forth, that you saw what I couldn't see, which is interesting that it takes an outsider to reveal who Kovacs really is, right? But he's deciding not to take the risk. So these two men are discussing, having a conversation, and the main boss here is basically saying, before you leave, I want you to do one more job. And it's basically send a message, no need for accidental, meaning that the person that you're going to kill, you don't need to make it look like it was an accident. I don't care about a message. I just want you to basically take the person out. And the person is going to be a reporter who is writing a story on him. And so he wants to have that person killed. And that person must be an extreme threat, a big threat for him to not even make it accidental, right? So they are discussing that information now. So I want to take a little bit of time to focus on Viktor now being, now labeling himself as an outsider. So remember a couple of frames, he's talking about the closer they are, and the mob boss is saying, but you saw it, right? And then Viktor is saying, well, I'm on the outside. It's easier to look in. So I never remember Viktor using the word outside in his dealings with Sergei and trafficking and Franco. But now, because of the betrayal, he's considering himself an outsider. So then this makes this sort of prompts the question, is he going to remain an outsider? Is he just going to be maybe a contract killer for multiple mob bosses? And what is his, when he says he's just an outsider, what is that sort of, that sounds a little bit like criticism of the mob hierarchy. That sounds like criticism of the system itself, that there is no one loyal. Anyone can be betrayed. The closer they are, the more likely they are to take you down. And of course, he's speaking from a frame of reference from having to shoot Sergei. And he didn't have this language before. He didn't talk this language when he was a child. I don't necessarily think he felt like an outsider in his own family. And he didn't necessarily feel like an outsider with the friendship group on the courtyard. But after his dealings with Trafficant, Franco, and Sergei, he's now considering himself an outsider. And this look that he's giving you, there's pain behind it. He's not going to show his tears right in front of this mob boss. He's not going to show you what he's really thinking. But I think the word using the preposition outside is something to really think about and consider, because how he frames his decision making is going to be sort of outside of the existing mob hierarchy, outside of the existing mob system, so that whatever decisions he makes, they're going to be his own. He's not going to consider the mob as he did before. He was loyal to Sergei. He believed in Sergei. Sergei was a pseudo father for him. He respected him. So when he's saying he's outside, there's no individual respect to one person anymore. He's a man for himself. He didn't even think about money when he was with Sergei. He felt covered and protected with Sergei. So if he thought about money so much, he would have spent the bill that Sergei gave him. But he didn't even think about money. But in his dealings with this mob boss, all of a sudden it's about price. And that's essentially, it could be his way of building maybe capital reserves for later, that he might decide to be a mob boss himself. It's unclear. Regardless, he's framing himself, he's positioning himself to be an outsider. So any decision that he makes going forward will be decisions of his own. And it doesn't matter if anyone likes it, and you can brand him however way you want to brand him. And that means that he's leaving it to chance. One, he can support the very system that he chose as a child, and he could oppose it if he wanted to. And that leaves him the flexibility and the options. So being on the outside is something completely, it sort of shifts the development of the plot. It shifts the thinking of the main character. It shifts all the people that are centered on that character, and it sort of informs what he's going to do with Bethesda later. All right, like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit my YouTube channel for further film analysis. It's Favorites Film Analysis as the title of the channel. You can always send me an email and ask me a question, reginayfavorites@yahoo.com. My Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction book will become available around October 2021. I'm still doing some editing. The book does not focus on film analyses, but I use the content that I created for the book to support my my perceptions of Setback used as a theme in select films. So when the book becomes available, I will send out a notification, video, audio. Thank you very much for visiting the channel.